Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Social Pillar. My name is Jared, and joining me tonight is Thea, as always, and Adam of Blood Moon Games. Hello, everyone. How are we?
Hi,
Hello,
guys.
hello. Well, I think we probably should tell the truth why we've got Adam here. Come on, we never had a two-header setup, did we? We only ever had the three-header. And Ian, our wonderful Ian, is not around tonight. He has abandoned us. Alas.
No. He's got other important things.
He has a life outside of streams. Who would have guessed? But we are super lucky to be joined by a most magnificent guest. Before we get into the meat and greet and mashed potatoes of it all, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we are streaming to you from, and hopefully you are listening from. I'm currently coming to you from Darug country, sort of on the border of Darawal country, and we want to pay our respects to the traditional owners and elders past and present, and extend those respects to any First Nations people who might be watching, including First Nations of countries outside of Australia. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land, and they are the original storytellers. And with that, speaking of storytellers, I'm OMGM. That one over there, wait, what side? That one over there is
Same
GM
side,
Chef and Jared.
Every day.
Hey. Same side we have every night. It's not true. You've swapped them around because central to tonight and to this evening, we have Adam. Do you want to introduce yourself very briefly?
Sure. Thank you, Thea. So my name's Adam Johnson. I am the co-founder and director of Blood Moon Games. It is an indie startup in Sydney, Australia, where we have created a world called Isdale and a game called The Trials of Isdale Ascension. And that is really what I do. I create board games. So yeah.
Wow, that's so exciting. I'm surprised that Jared has not kidnapped you and got you in a basement somewhere, to be completely honest.
No, he lured me with the board games. It's the other way around.
That's right.
Come in, little kid. I've got some dice.
That's right. It didn't really take so much convincing, I think.
None. Literally none.
We'd also like to welcome everybody here in chat and anybody who's watching the VOD later on this evening. Thank you all. If you are here live, please do feel free to ask any questions that you might have. Adam assured me before we started that we can ask him anything.
That is correct.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited about that. Yes.
Awesome.
The chaos is real already.
Yeah. Heard in the chat.
Sorry,
I heard constructive criticism. Where's the development? No, all
right. Well, let's just get straight into it. Can you tell us about the Trials of Isdale Ascension? What is it?
Yeah. So so first and foremost, Trials of Isdale is a board game, and Ascension is actually the name of the game. And where it kind of comes from is about, 3 years ago or so, give or take. I basically just had an idea for a world called Isdale. And it's a fantasy world where we have a civilization of people who have basically gone through a lot of stuff in their, in the formation and the building of blocks of that civilization, many different eras and ages, and they're now living in what would be their golden era. It is, it's a world of peace and harmony, but there is an ever-present doom that's always waiting. There is essentially an ethereal or force field of sorts around this world. There's 13 pillars, and each of those pillars is powered by their gods. And those pillars create a safety net of sorts around the world of Isdale. On the other side is a race called the Karun, and the Karun are effectively they're the doomsday clock, right? If the net goes down, it's over, right? And they're very, very savage, single-minded, hive mind kind of mentality, and so the game is essentially the way the game plays is that one of the gods is dying, and there needs to be someone to take their place, and only worthy champions who have a distinct bloodline can actually wield the weapons and the magic of the day in order to be able to beat back the Karun. And so it's dying. The god is dying, and essentially the net is starting to fade. Some Karun are kind of making their way through. And so the game is essentially a race to try and see who can beat monsters and essentially kill the Lord of Trials and take their rightful place as the new divine god.
That sounds amazing. It sounds like there's a huge amount of lore and world building that's gone on behind that.
Yeah.
That is in the tip of the iceberg. You have no idea. We don't have time for it all. It's incredible stuff.
Yeah.
No.
I do want to ask though. So you said you kind of created the world first. What were some of the places you drew inspiration for that world from?
Yeah, look, honestly, I think it would be silly to say that there's no, you're constantly inspired by everything that you see, right?
Yeah.
And so, there's lots of trope stuff in this world. Of course, it's fantasy fiction. There's look, a lot of my inspiration comes from, I guess, worlds like The Witcher, worlds like Raymond E. Feist's works, right?
Magician, amazing.
Magician, yeah, I think I've actually got Magician.
Oh my goodness! Look at that wonderful shelf behind you.
Yeah, Marvel Comics, if you can believe that. So I draw inspiration. Tolkien's works and even works put out by Games Workshop and big publishers as well. So it all kind of comes from, I guess, I'm 41 years old, 30 odd years of playing board games and reading fantasy fiction and just being immersed in that stuff. So it comes from everywhere, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really interesting you say that, because we've had a couple of episodes on this, I think in this season or last season, a period of time where we were talking about different places to get inspiration. And I love that you say it comes from everywhere, because we've talked about things getting inspiration from, the world, the traditional fantasy type places, but also from artworks, from blogs, from all that sort of thing.
Absolutely. Look, I just things like the Blood Moon Games is the company that we have set up that will be self-publishing all of our games. And I've always had a weird affinity or liking for the concept of the blood moon, and just the idea that it's such a simple thing that's happening if you know the science behind it, but for primitive minds or people who don't know, that could be such a dramatic event. And things would you'd start thinking that, of course, there's gods that are at play, there's magic powers that are at play. This idea.
Not?
Yeah,
I've been lied to my whole life.
I've always loved. I think a few people have said it, but I think Arthur C. Clarke said something like, any sufficient technology is indistinguishable from magic, right?
Yeah, so true.
To minds that don't understand. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but that's the gist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the mechanics of the game? Where did you sort of get ideas for that from? Sorry, I'm a very technical person.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a super technical person. So, look, honestly, it was. So the date was actually the 22nd of September, 2020, and
all right.
I woke up at about 2:30 in the morning. And honestly, and I was talking to my business partner Anthony about this earlier today. We have this. There's a discussion about ideas exist in the world and they come to you because they're looking for a home and they're looking for someone to create it. And if you don't create it, it will find a home somewhere else. And and it was one of these things that, so I woke up at sort of 2:30 in the morning and just this wave of, I could see it as clear as I'm talking to you now, this wave of all of this information just coming into my mind about what this world would look like, what the game would look like and how it would play. And I think it kind of manifested from a need and a want to really make a game that I wanted to play. And because I've always, I'm a competitive player by nature. I love competitive games. This is a very competitive game.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I've been a tabletop wargaming player my whole life. I've been board game player my whole life, and I love the competitive nature. But I also wanted to play a game that was very asymmetrical, that I could, build, that could have lots of different champions or characters that you could use. And essentially, I also am a big fan of letting the player just do what they want. And I don't necessarily like putting restrictions on players from a game balance perspective. And so the rules were written with a clear intent to basically allow players to, if you want to go God mode, if you want to go Super Saiyan, at any point you can, right? You can do that.
Yep.
But the trade-off is that if you do that, next turn, you've run out of steam. Right.
Yeah. Okay.
You're regulating action economy constantly. Yeah.
Yeah. So there is an action economy. That's correct. So
tell me a bit more about that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So the basic premise of the game is essentially that you have, you've got a champion. You're moving through effectively a dungeon or a system of trials, and every time you move forward, you will draw a trial card. And that trial card will tell you that you need to do something. And that trial card might be a monster, it might be a trap, or it might be some sort of door that you need to get through. And every champion is good at certain things and they're bad at certain things. And so it's about making the choices available to you at the time. And so you resolve those cards, resolve that trial, and then you keep moving forward on your next turn. And you've got abilities, you've got items, there are bosses every 4. So every 4 tiles there will be a boss that you need to fight. And when you beat bosses, you get a unique piece of you get a unique relic that is specifically tailored to your champion, that will make the abilities that you've already got much better. And so there is a scale or a ramp up in the game where after each boss fight, like you'll get through the boss fight and you'll be like, oh God, I just scraped through that. But then you're much more powerful going forward, and you get more powerful. And the idea is to, by the time you get to the Lord of Trials, you should be ready to face them.
Yeah, fantastic. I love that. You should be. We've given you every opportunity to get there, and if you fail, it's your fault.
Yeah, look, and there's
pretty much.
You're not only fighting monsters, bosses, traps, all that sort of stuff. There's also ways in which players can manipulate your journey, right, or manipulate each other's journeys. They can move you back, they can lock you into stasis, which sucks if you're fighting a boss.
Oh my gosh.
So they can do a whole host of things, and we've got some very, very cool champions. There's you can see them above me there. So the base game comes with that's right. That's a barbarian.
Bob.
How do I?
Bob.
Yep. That's a ranger. Sorry,
Ranger.
Don't worry, we do the same thing. It's like the people over that side.
That's the ranger. That is the paladin, and that is the wizard. And so those are the champions that come in the base game, and they all play very, very different.
Very different. And they're wonderful.
Yeah.
They're all uniquely wonderful. Yeah.
So, Jared, you've got some familiarity with this game, I know, because I can see the enthusiasm. What are some of the things that you really like about this?
First and
And then I'll ask
foremost,
you
I
what you
think
hate
it's
about
got
it. So, you know.
perfect. First and foremost, it's got a lot of deep strategy, and I think once you've had a couple of cracks at it, I can see it being very fast, very strategic, very competitive. But at the same time, you can play at your own pace, and you do need to also take that time to reflect and go, what's the best thing for me now, and what can I delay, and what, you're always thinking a little bit forward and a little bit back. And you're never lacking choices, because it's not structured so much as in like a role-playing game that has specific things you can do on your turn. You don't have like an upkeep. You don't have like this set routine. Pretty much everything's available to you as long as it's not on cooldown, or you have the item, because there's also, you earn item cards. So there's always something to do, even if it is your just basic attack. So your stats are pools of dice, and so you're always trying to modify how many dice and how effective they are, which is just so wonderful because it's a very organic experience.
I do have to ask the question for the dice goblins. What dice does it use?
So it uses just a standard D6 for your, I guess, for your standard roll mechanics when you're fighting monsters. We've added a couple of D10 dice in there just to allow people to track health.
Awesome.
So.
That'll keep the dice goblins happy. We've got a comment from Purdy in the chat saying that's sort of seems to be quite a popular, genre or style from people who are into tabletop gaming as well. Do you play role-playing games? Is that something that you're into as well?
Yeah, so I've actually just recently been getting into D&D. I have a human bard / rogue,
Cool.
and his name is Jefferson Steelstring. And so I've written a whole backstory.
You would.
I wanted to play off Jefferson Airplane and the fact that he's playing steel strings. So that was the
that's sick.
That was the idea for that. And he's a bit of a cad, and he's got a very unique story. But he's being followed around by a cat that has the soul of his. It's got the soul of his ex-lover's lover trapped inside this cat.
That's so beautiful. That's so cool.
So much potential for drama. I love it.
Dude.
So I do like role-playing. I like in terms of role-playing games, but I would say I was a huge fan of choose your own adventure type fiction when I was younger.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember the Fabled Lands series of books. Did you ever?
Rings a bell.
That's right. There was about 7 of them, and then the story doesn't end because the 8th book was never written or it never got published. And I think that there's a community of people who've tried to recreate it. And Fabled Lands was so good, so good. You would move around through books and all these sorts of things. I love that sort of stuff.
Damn.
But actual role playing games, I'm really just starting to get into D&D at the moment, and we're doing like a monthly session at the moment. So it's fantastic.
Oh, that's very exciting. So, I mean, it's obviously you love kind of board games, you love playing, you love world creation. But what made you decide you wanted to create a game?
Yeah. So I think it comes back to there was a game. The idea came to me because there was a game that I wanted to play, and I kept searching for it for years and years and years to try and find this one game. And I played, after playing so many board games, and there was always just elements of these games that there was one reason or another why it just never stuck with me or clicked with me.
Yeah.
And so I just said, well, stuff it. Let's just make it, right?
Yeah.
And and honestly, when I created it for the first time after having that dream, and then I basically spent the next sort of 24, 40 hours straight writing rules and lore. and then like literally cutting cardboard out and handwriting 256
Hell yeah.
you know, trials
Wow.
cards and item cards and all these bits and pieces. I've got the box. This is the clean skin box
The
that has
OG.
all the original stuff. Yeah, look, honestly,
dude.
I'll just.
That's
I mean,
cool.
you can't just bring out a box and not show us what's
No,
inside.
that's all right. So these were item cards, right, that I had
Wow.
created, and then. And writing, you know, like that one is
What?
seal of speed, skip 2
Oh,
tiles,
wow.
right? Things
Great
like that.
card.
There's,
Used it
like,
many times.
hundreds of them. Yeah,
That's sick.
hundreds of them.
That's so cool.
Right, and so I've still got all of that. And the actually, if you bear with me, this is
Absolutely.
Jared,
Absolutely.
you're going to love this. This is what the original
I'm loving it all already.
1/4 of the board
Okay.
looked like originally.
Okay, so you were thinking.
That was one. So that was
Wow.
1/4 of the board originally.
Yay.
Right, and so we scaled it down. This was the Wizards board, okay?
Cool.
And this was
Okay,
where you could put
yeah.
items and cards and stuff. And this was where you had abilities and
You'd
things like
track
that.
your
This was
abilities.
right, this is where you would go. And so you would have 4 of
Nailed
these,
Oh,
make this massive.
wow.
right? It was
Oh my
it was
gosh.
gigantic. And then that scaled
That's
down
such a cool idea, though.
eventually.
Yeah.
That scaled down to this.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Amazing.
And then
Yeah.
it scaled down to the modular tile set that you see when you
Mm.
play the game. Yeah, I
Yeah,
haven't.
they're just like dungeon
it'd be hard
tiles
for me to
that
get
you would
those
use
out.
for a role playing
Yeah.
game. No, they're just like dungeon tiles. They're beautifully nice artistic stuff. You can make it modular. You can do what you want with it, and I like that you can expand it and change it and make it more difficult. It's just so wonderful that you can choose kind of your own path and play it your own way as well.
Yeah.
You know, it's so open-ended in terms of it's kind of like a role-playing game where I can see people kind of going, I want to be able to do this. We can easily add that because the core structure is as Adam must enjoy working with it so much, creating far more classes than you see behind you. It's very customizable,
That's
and people can and will just kind of go homebrew because
Yeah.
unique experiences. Why not?
Yeah, and there is, and you know, every time we've got new players playing, they're like, "Oh, wouldn't it be cool to do, you know, homebrew this rule?" Or more. The homebrew tends to happen when people die a lot. Right?
Yeah.
Well,
and
I
you
think
can-
we should
you can
make sure in
legitimately die
future.
in this game. Yeah,
Hmm.
Oh yeah,
that's right.
yeah.
And so there's lots of ways. You can extend the length of play as well. So you can have much shorter games just by simply normally there would be 4 bosses before you reach the Lord of Trials, but you can scale it down to 3 or 2. You could, if you wanted to, literally just do a pickup and just a half-hour game. You could do
Do that
one
as
boss
well.
if you really wanted.
Yeah, like give
that's just
yourself
like
a relic or
test and
something. Just like have a little head start, get yourself going. Like if it's probably your first experience, I think Adam, having Ant and yourself run it for me, it's definitely worthwhile if it's your first experience, I think, to actually invest in a full experience, because then you actually know where you're going. It's kind of like in role-playing games. You don't want to start with a highly developed, high-level character, too much going on, too many choices, and you won't really know what's effective yet. So when it's the perfect experience when you start with very, very, everything's ready to go, and like you said, you can just use all of your stuff on your first turn if you really feel you need to. But you'll learn to regulate and manage, and that whole experience comes over a couple of bosses. So, yeah. And you just feel amazing when you defeat a boss and you get a relic, and it's game changing.
Nice. I think that comes from a good comment in the chat as well, talking about replayability. Was that something, Adam, you thought about when you were creating this and going down that modular? Because I know for me, sometimes board games, I'm like, okay, like I used to play Hero Quest. Every Christmas, we'd sit around and play it with my family because I'd get a new expansion, but you can't really play it multiple times.
Sure. Yeah. So it's the core. 100%. It's paramount to me. So when I was designing the rule set, and where that came in, the replayability of it is really around the diversity between champions. So you can play the same champion. So, for example, Anthony, who he likes to play the wizard, right?
Yeah.
And when I showed him, when I showed him the paladin, or when I showed him the ranger, he was like, "Oh, wait, hang on, the paladin can do this, and the ranger can do this," and and you go, "Oh, the ranger's got a pet wolf that they can attack, right? That they can attack monsters with. This is crazy, right? And why does the ranger start with more boons than the wizard, but the wizard gets more items?" And then there's huge differences between the champions, and that was super important for the replayability. And if I can be so bold as to say that whilst the base game comes with 4 champions, there is another 4 champions that we will be bringing to the table once, after the initial start. And then we also have plans for another 2 sets of 4. So,
Amazing.
there'll be 16, I think, when we're done.
Yeah.
And all unique, very unique.
I cannot wait. Yeah, they're incredible.
It sounds like you've got a bit of a plan for sort of the first module and then expansion. Was that something that you kind of sat down with originally and came up with, like, oh, we want to do this, we want to have a plan, we want to have things coming out, or was that something that happened more organically?
Yeah. So, look, obviously the original idea to us, and sorry, I don't mean to say obviously, it wasn't even obvious to me.
Obviously, yeah.
But it was, the original idea was, how can we just make this board game, right? And how can we tell the story of the world of Isdal through this board game?
Yeah.
And the lore has become so meta and so much bigger than this single game, that's when we started to think, hang on a second, we can't tell everything in this one game. And in fact, the board game occurs, or the events in this game really occur in a snapshot in time of all of the history of the world of Isdal.
Yeah.
And so we started to put together, and we've got a roadmap of content that we're putting that's in development now, all the way to the end of 2025. And so, we're looking to launch we're going to be launching on Kickstarter in quarter one, sort of tail end of quarter one next year. So March, right, give or take. And we'll see. We don't have an exact date locked down. And if that changes, obviously we'll let people know. And then, we've got extra champions will come out systematically after that. We've also got a second game in development, which is a tabletop war game specifically. And I don't want to give too much information about that one, but that's also sick, right?
Awesome.
So it's very, 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 very good. And again, it's it lives in the ethos of allowing players to do what they want, giving them the tools and giving them the rule sets to be able to create their own, battle force of champions to fight another player in their battle force of champions. And the strategy comes from that you don't actually know what each other's got until you get within line of sight, essentially. Right? And so, and it'll be objective based. There's campaigns. And that's really going to tell a little bit more lore. There's a third game as well. This will be post 2025, but the third game is actually a cooperative role playing game. And it is like you could call it a dungeon crawler, but it's more about I'm trying to, I guess, move into the choose your own adventure style.
We need more of those. Genre, we need more choose your own adventure. Well, we're looking to do lots of things. So we're getting, we are starting to put together lore into short novellas, little 50-page novellas. We're looking to do a mobile game as well. We're sort of talking about that at the moment. We're talking about if it goes the way I would like to do, is, hopefully we're doing some animated webisodes or, that sort of stuff as well. So, look, we're
sounds amazing.
the journey for us is not just this game. It is the trials of Isdale, and maybe it will be our trials, right? But
For sure.
but you know, we're specifically about bringing people into this world, letting them experience and letting them learn and discover the history of this world, along with the champions and the characters and everything in the world, sort of in a way that, you know, they'll learn some secrets and you know, discover the past a little bit.
I mean, that sounds fantastic. I know that one of the things that a lot of players, and love the idea of discovering the world. It sounds like you've written a lot of lore for this world.
You have no idea.
Yes. Yeah. I gave Jared a very brief sort of 10-minute synopsis of the entire thousands of years of history of this world. Yeah. And look, there is a lot in my head. There is a lot written down. All of that is always a work in progress. It's all that job will never be done, really, you know, because it constantly evolves.
Not with the scope you've also opted for as well, which I love, because it's so beautiful to tell everyone's own stories, and you can tell all kinds of things over many time spans. It's just it's really wonderful what you've primed for.
Yeah, so the second board game, also the second game, which the tabletop war game, it will be called Trials of Isdale, and then X, right, something else. We haven't landed a final name for it yet, but it actually goes back in time and tells the story of things that, you know, events past that have led to why it is a golden age. Right?
Incredible. No, it's actually a really good segue. Speaking of golden ages and everything's going well, you mentioned that you're self-publishing. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the steps in that journey? And I'm thinking for people who might be interested in the process. So obviously you've created an amazing, beautiful world, but we live in this one, and this one's tricky.
Yeah. So we are still working through a lot of that stuff. I think where it kind of came together for us, and it was a sense of my greatest excitement, and also my greatest fears, and it was being realized. And it was when we finally, and it was earlier this year, when we finally had all of our assets ready for print. And we've got a great group over in China who we work with, and they and getting them to manufacture the 10. We've got 10 beta copies of the game. And going through that process was quite challenging, because you have to make sure that the assets are right, make sure that you've got them, right sizing, and that they're, correct color schemes, correct ratios, all these sorts of things. And so a lot of that I've learnt, and I'm self-taught, and all of the graphic design elements, everything is me. I've done.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
So, and obviously with the input from our from the rest of the guys in our team. And so there's 4 of us. There's myself, there's Anthony, there's Chris, and then there's Simon. And all, we all come from diverse backgrounds, but all we have a very keen and shared sense of camaraderie when it comes to fantasy world building and role-playing games and tabletop board games and stuff. So
Okay. How did you find that team, that sort of core group of people? Were you friends first?
Yeah, look, so Anthony and I have been friends for 20-something years. We met playing Call of Duty. Right.
Yeah, wow. A game known for bringing people together in collegiate relationships.
Yeah. And then we've met, so I've met Chris through the D&D scene, and Simon through Anthony through other business dealings. And it's I think we've got a strong team behind us, which I think is going to be really, really good for us. All creative minded. And in terms of, to your original question, what is it going to take to self-publish? We're still kind of working through that. Our goal is to build community first, and really, what we're trying to. One of the big things that's always been a core thing for me has been, I don't want to put this out into the world to say, hey, can you help me develop a game?
Yeah.
I want to put it out into the world to say, hey, do you want to support a game we've already built?
Yeah.
Right. And I want the evidence of industry there. I want people to know that there is passion. I want people to see that we've, we have skin in the game, right? We're not joking around, right?
Yeah.
And so this is, it's we're hoping people will be receptive to that and come on the journey with us. And yeah, that's I think the big thing first for us as community.
Yeah. And I mean, sorry, Jared, you were going to say?
No, just like it's such a nice way to obviously position yourselves when you're entering into something like this. You're obviously driven, and that motivation and sort of willpower has driven you through your first trial, essentially the whole beta testing, and then does it even look right on prints and all of that sort of stuff. So you gotta get samples. It is a very involved process, but now that you've done that, that's one hurdle, and I can't see any momentum slowing down here. So
yeah. Can I tell you the pains of preparing things for print is.
I've tried to have business cards printed. I know it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we have 400 and there's 480. Sorry. There's 486 cards if you're talking 8 champions, right? There's 400, and they're all different, right? Every single card artwork is unique. The graphic elements and things like that are unique. The wording is generally unique across most of the cards, and so just going through and spell checking every single little thing, and of course the beta came, and it's like a woods for the trees kind of scenario. We've all vetted it, and then of course as soon as we the first thing someone pulls out the Crypt Guardian card, and it's spelled Guardians, and I went, "You're kidding."
I've got to say, I kind of love that. It's a Crypt Guardian.
Guardian, yeah.
Guardian.
I was like, how did we not?
He's walking in.
Amazing. I actually wanted to ask more about that because it sounds like it's been an amazing creative journey. What are some parts that were less amazing that you had to? I think sometimes people think the creative process is all fairies and roses and it all goes well, but it's not necessarily.
Yeah. So it's been 3 years in the making, and there's definitely been moments in there where periods of a couple of months or so where there's just been a big pause, and that's been because even my own fear, right? Playing, going, can I even do this? Is it good? Are people even going to like? There's lots of self-doubt, and you'll have moments that like that, and I don't think any one of the things I've learned is I don't think any truly creative process will be absent those moments. Right? You'll always have some lingering. There'll be doubts in your mind about whether or not this is going to be received correctly, whether or not what you're doing is something that is it even worthwhile doing. And so, trying to get through those hurdles is probably the hard part. And that's why I think one of the biggest lessons for myself has been team is always better than solo. And, having creative people around me and having a good team. There's no way I can do this on my own. It's not possible, right? And so, having the team that we've got has been, it's a game changer. When you've got people who can soundboard ideas, who can help you out of any little funks that you might have along the way, those sorts of things. Yeah, absolutely, right? And so that's, I
it's
think
the community.
having a core team.
Yeah, you can't be everywhere at once. You can't do all the things required. So that alone, just logistically, is amazing. But then it's having the right people around you. You know, the saying, "You are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with." And in essence, like the more you spend time with people, if they are someone who lifts you up, you get lifted up. And if they're not really the healthiest for you in lifestyle or whatever that may be, you know, try not to spend that time with them. Obviously, relationships and stuff change depending on obligations and stuff. But it's wonderful to hear that you aren't just alone in this, and that you have the support to make your vision come into reality, which is so inspiring.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting comment from chat as well. So one of our community members, Pedicious, is also a game creator. And just said spent months looking for games that were similar to a concept, spoke to people about it, and then after that found very similar and some with concepts, and sort of helped get that perspective. Is working with your, I guess, the people in your team, does that help you maintain perspective or change your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we've made so many changes to the game and even to elements of the lore, right? Because we find something that might work and we discuss it, and then we will find the ways that it doesn't work, and essentially, you know, that team really shapes, I guess, the creative process. One of the things that we didn't do, and people have asked me this question before, which is, you know, did you go out and play test in the very early days of the game? And the answer to that's no. There was a specific reason for that, and that was simply because what we wanted to do was essentially build a fully fledged game. And so we test in-house, we do our bits, and then when we think it's ready to play, then we give that opportunity for people to play it. And it has been, and it was play tested even before yourself, Jared. It was play tested when it was just written down on cardboard. And it was play tested for literally hundreds and hundreds of games. And, you know, we got to a point where we were like, okay, I think we're ready to run a beta versions, and you know, there's still little elements that we will change, of course. There's very tiny balance elements that we've got to tweak, but you know, outside of that, I think the core, and there's some FAQ stuff that we'll probably continue to do as well, but the core of it is super solid. And I think, you know, we're at a point now where with just a little bit more polish, it's going to be, you know, when it launches in March, I can't wait. It's going to be great.
It sounds super exciting. Kind of, I guess, we're starting to get towards the end of our time, but I guess as a reflection question is, if someone was trying to do something similar, or, you know, if we do the typical psychology thing, talking to your younger self, what kind of advice would you give to people? Or what would you have wanted to hear?
Look, you're always going to be your own biggest critic. So do your best to ignore that guy, right, or girl, right? Do your best to ignore them, and just put it on paper, right? Start with cardboard and cut things out, and don't be afraid to get down with scissors and a ruler and, you know, draw things out. And I did that, and that was, you know, for literally days and months, you know, putting those things together and draw it and redraw it and draw it again and redraw it, and just keep doing that. And you're not going to finish something that you never start, right? So just start, and it will change and it will grow, and just let yourself be okay with that. I think that's it's been a thing that I've learned along the way, for sure.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's plant the seed. And water it every day. It's
such an important thing. And I think creatives, we can be very self-critical. And I think this is something that we've talked about in previous episodes, is when you're running a game, you want to do everything, and you want to create and curate this amazing experience. And sometimes that that anxiety about doing that can be paralyzing. So that's fantastic advice. And look, you've got some interesting things on the cupboard behind you.
Yeah.
How far you've come.
Yeah.
Got
So,
new room decorations.
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. If nothing else, new room decorations. So
I'm sure it is way
Absolutely.
more than that.
That and way more. For sure. I can't wait till I can put one on my RPG shelf, because there's like Cards Against Humanity there and some other abstract things.
Nice.
But I would be proud to display that on my bookshelf that is entirely dedicated to role playing.
I will say one of the other really, and I never thought about this when I was making in the original days of making the game, and I showed you how big that board was.
Yeah.
It's something that really kind of became a big challenge for us was the user experience on the table, right? And I went to the nth degree to make sure that I had measured exactly how far an arm would have to reach to grab something on the table so that the user experience stays in this realm. Right. And then, things like just how big is a box, right? And will it fit on a shelf? Right. That is it's a question you have to ask yourself. And
It is.
so, there's lots of little things. Nuances of it.
Amazing. And Jared, you've seen a lot of this journey and had the opportunity to get some early plays in. What are some, I guess, reflections you would have if you were to think about this?
Yeah. I mean, exactly what Adam's talking about. Like, for me, it was obviously like my two brief interactions that I have had with it has been that first user experience, and I'm very grateful that Adam has done such a thorough job, and his team has probably provided and aligned, changed the direction of ideas, because what is there is actually really customizable. My first experience setting this up with Ants, it was just the two of us, and he put his cards top and bottom. So you have your sort of your ability tracker, and then your card that tells you your passives and your base scores, and a beautiful artwork of your hero. So he put his cards top and bottom, and then I immediately went across the edge of the table. And I think that it kind of encapsulates what has evolved, what this has evolved into, because it's exactly that. You can lay out your cards however you want, and it is undeniably within reach in more ways than one. So absolutely, and you can scale it up and change it and do it how you want. That initial board you put out, Adam, was so reminiscent and nostalgic for me, as I just remember when I got into like trading card games, it was Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon, and they came with these fold-out mats that you would use to put your cards on, not only for protection, but to know where you put all your cards. And that was very nostalgic, and I kind of want to play it like that as well. It'd be very cool, I think.
I think that was the control freak aspect in me going, I want players to put their card there.
Everything in its place.
Right, and that everything in its place. And then, that was one of the things that my team helped finesse out of me, which was great.
Immediately, we're going to split. I can only think of two possible ways a player could do this. Send it to the players. They will come up with the 6th, 7th, and 8th. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Jared, you've seen the beta test. How does it feel? Is it weighty? Is it like a solid book? Is it good?
Oh,
I mean, you're not going to say
like,
no.
I would. I mean, obviously, being beta, it is a package. I mean, as Adam's kind of laid out the strategy for introducing people with a full set and then expanding with 4 more classes, and it's just such a wonderful way to actually, I think, experience the totality of the product, because what he's got in those boxes behind him is 8 classes, the 4 that you see again behind him, and then 4 kind of specialists that I'm conceptualizing in my head. They are all equal value, but you have your Ranger, Paladin, Barbarian, and the other one, the Wizard. And forgive me, the Wizard, like. That's basically where you start with a role-playing game. You have some martial, you have some magic, and then there's subclasses, and that's what you have to look forward to. So having a snapshot into that aspect has been amazing. Being someone who really enjoys cards and card magic, the cards feel really, really good. They're really enjoyable. They're smooth. They're easy to use. And then just the amount of dice and all of the maths that I know Adam has worked so hard in engineering behind the scenes. He's a wizard in his own right. But yeah, just the entire experience feels really good. Like I've always, I kind of thought, oh, maybe I would like to have a little bit of a physical token for this, but then of course Adam's already thought of what's the whole experience, what's the cost factor, what's the shippability, how much space is that going to take up, and at the end of the day, everything has to be brought into account. And I know from what Adam's so passionately spoken about, he's thought of pretty much everything he can, him and his wonderful team. So yeah, I can't see anything that couldn't be added on. Like you could literally just use some dice as a physical token. Like it's not, there's nothing that is lacking that I've seen, and there's so much substance there that I haven't even dived into. So,
I mean, Jared, it sounds like your kind of game. You love your lore, you love the backstory and characters and all of that. Yeah.
Well, that's it. They recommended for my second time to play the same. Yeah, well, undeniably, I've already said to my regular D&D group, who I've had the pleasure of introducing to the game as well, that could easily be something that substitutes for a regular session if we're not playing. It's very, like, you could see this as almost like combat mechanics for a role-playing game. It is kind of, just we can do this, and it gives a very nice experience very cleanly. So absolutely, you can try different classes, but I played the Ranger twice, found my playthrough extremely different. I felt like I had more resources, and whether that was because I'd thought to actually strategize and think ahead maybe, and not just do all the things because it's cool straight away. And how does the Ranger play and all of that? Fun. So yeah, well, that's it. I just like to do stuff when I first get my hands on. So yeah, and the second playthrough was really enjoyable. So.
I've got to say, I would like to see our DM group, like others. So the three of us, we've just played an AI game. The level of chaos and attempts to see how far we can push mechanics, I think would be really interesting.
And I love that. Right, I love that, and it's one of my. So it's. I like when I play video games and things like that. Anthony always says to me, he says, "Adam, how did you do that?" Right? Maybe it was like I was playing Diablo and I've come up with this class that just annihilates everything, right? And he's like, "How did you do that?" And I go, "Oh, well, I'd like to. I read all the rules, right? And then I go, how do I break
read the manual,
right? So, how can I break it?"
Amazing.
And so that's.
Awesome. It sounds super exciting. I'm keen to look at it. You're saying March next year, so this is a Kickstarter thing that you'll be doing?
Yeah, so that's the plan. We also are doing Collecticon on the 26th of November. So we'll have our little booth, and we've got banners, right? I know, right? How cool is that?
Is there going to be like Viking helmets and armor?
Oh, look, I'll see what I can do. We'll rustle something up. But yeah,
come to Collecticon, Adam. You'll have the pleasure of meeting Adam at Collecticon coming up, because we're going to have a whole table for people to actually get their hands on, which is really exciting. So people can come and check it out.
We'll be running some shorter, tailored experiences so that people can kind of get a taste of it, or we'll see how that goes. And then we've also got the Trials of Isdale.com.au website, and that's up, and that will be taking. It's just a little form. It's in its infancy at the moment. It's just a form field with some logos and stuff like that allow people to provide us with email addresses, stuff, so that they can give us their expressions of interest. And so if they're interested in it and they've played it, or they've seen us at Collecticon, or they've managed to play it through any of our sort of connections, more than happy to get their email addresses and stuff, so that we can get them on the Discord, and then also keep them informed on the development road, life cycle. So,
Well, that is super exciting. Awesome. And obviously we want to help share anything that's going to support that as well. But we are starting to run up against our, it's not a hard limit. It's a very soft, squishy limit. But is there any final, is there a link or anything? Purdy's just asking. Do we have a link at the moment? Do we have a website?
If I could open my email, I could get it, but What are we-
Technical issues is not just about the stream, people.
So trialsofisdale.com.au should
I'm
be
going to
up.
put it in the chat and wait and see if I spell it properly. Is
I'm actually
Dale.
trying to. Oh,
You got it?
did I do it? No,
So this is now no longer tech issues. This is wetware issues.
this is pure wet racy.
You're
Got it.
us. This is
Bam.
us.
Copy.
You got it?
Do the thing.
Boom.
It's in the chat. Boom. And if you're watching this after the fact, it'll be in the description or something. But it's Trials of
Yeah, we'll stick it
Isdale,
down in the description below.
ISDAL. Yeah, ISDAL. Yeah,
Trials
Cool.
of
So-
Isdale.
yeah. Check
Amazing.
your email in there. Get subscribed. It's gonna be cool.
Yeah. Very cool. And maybe we'll play it on stream one day. Who knows?
Hey,
That would be
Oh,
pretty cool.
that would be
We could have a
I
camera.
was literally just.
We could set up
Yeah,
like a
I
camera.
was just
and
thinking-
yeah, that would be sick.
We gotta do that
Yeah.
because absolutely, like if you guys each had a little tester, and this is what I'm thinking, Adam, is like it's such like an OG experience for role playing games as well as you always have your character and you would play that character as long as they would survive and you could play multiple campaigns and like I feel like people are
Yeah.
gonna have mains. You know, this is very much like a you know, what's that Blizzard Overwatch and like all of these sorts of other
Yeah.
competitive games from the video game perspective because I'm a big video gamer as well. So I'm also coming into that from that gamer perspective, as well as, you know, like we touched on, there's a little bit of a game designer in every game master and every dungeon master as well. So I think this is such a perfect thing. And I'm so glad you came on to talk about it because I'm super excited for it. And I can't wait to play more. And
Yeah.
my only way to play more is to make this
guys.
happen. So it's purely self.
Yeah.
I am so grateful for the opportunity to come on and speak with you guys. It has been fantastic, total pleasure. And I'm always up for running game sessions for the game. Always up to support the community, and stay tuned. We're going to be doing some great things, I think. So
Yeah. Yeah. Again, thank you so much. This has been heaps of fun. You've been really lovely to chat to. Yeah. I wouldn't say you filled Ian's place. I would say that you have carved out your own beautiful place. And we really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And we really appreciate you sharing part of your journey because I know that can be very, that can be kind of scary sometimes and it's a bit vulnerable to talk about your journey. So I really do appreciate that. And thank you.
thank you.
So that is about the time for this conversation that we have. We will be coming back next week and continuing the chat about community and all that kind of thing. Jared, what are we talking about next week? Do we know? I mean,
Absolutely.
I'm sure
We
I wrote it
totally
down
know.
somewhere.
We're actually going to be talking about specifically some role-playing tools in the online digital space. So I wouldn't say necessarily on like if we're talking purely from an online remote play perspective, I think that's what the angle we're shooting for. But we're going to talk about like different virtual tabletops, get into like some nuts and bolts. But I've got so many amazing like web tools and stuff I'd love to share. And yeah, I think we're just going to talk about our different perspectives and how we each approach that because we've all ran games online. We've used different tabletops, different communication methods, and it's all there to play for. So that's what's happening next week.
It's very exciting. We also have anybody who follows us on YouTube. We are starting to get season 3 out. So that will be up on YouTube very shortly. We obviously have the VODs here. We have the Discord that you are more than welcome to join, which I'm sure some most amazing person will put a link to in the chat.
Yes, it's yes.
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 Was that subtle? Was that? I'm good at the subtle.
It's there.
I didn't
There's an
point,
ad
'cause
there.
normally I point in the wrong direction.
Great.
It's
They're just going
there.
to see the
Look
link
at
for the
that.
Discord now.
No, that's okay. We've got subscribers. Not everybody's going to see the ads.
Oh yeah.
But
Never mind.
yeah.
Everyone sees it.
So yes. Thank you everybody for joining us in chat. Thank you again, Adam. Thank you again, Jared. We are going to jump and raid
Right up.
somebody else's channel. Yeah, we are.
Hell yeah.
But thank you everybody for joining us. Any final words? That sounds ominous. I'm not going to
No.
jump through the screen.
Bye for now.
Any farewell?
Any final words for now?
Bye for now. Yeah, bye for now.
No,
We're
thank you,
going to
Adam.
find somebody doing a little bit of D&D.
We're gonna rain out.
Thank you,
For sure.
guys.
Alrighty.
so
No,
much.
thank you,
See you
bud.
soon.
Can't wait to see you again at CollectorCon coming up soon, a couple of weeks away. If you guys are in Sydney, want to check out this game, you can actually come and get hands-on with it. I've kind of cobbled stuff together because I really want to actually like put a splash page up on the website so that people can see what they're getting into. And Adam will have a whole space, but we've got a full table running all day. Adam and Co will be there, so come check it out. Or you can just come and play some role-playing games as well. You can play that in the morning, do this, and then there's like this cool convention happening. So I'm going to quit that ramble because it's time to go. So thank you everyone for tuning in.